Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling when you're putting tons of effort into your online presence, but it feels like you're just shouting into a void,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
you're working hard, but maybe not really connecting with the people who actually matter.
It's a frustration we hear constantly. I mean, the digital world is so noisy, right? And a lot of well-intentioned effort, it just gets lost.
Yeah.
But the good news is, effective online growth doesn't necessarily require you to be the loudest. It really requires you to be the most relevant.
And that's exactly what we're diving deep into today. How to find and, laser target your ideal customers online.
hmm
Think of this as your express lane to cutting through all that clutter and really engaging with the people who are going to become the bedrock of your business.
Yep.
We've sifted through a lot of info to bring you the crucial stuff.
Yeah, the essentials.
And actually, speaking of building a strong online foundation, if you're looking to give your social media profiles a bit of a boost as part of this whole strategy, you might want to check out rapidboost.net, just something to keep in mind.
Good tip.
Okay, so let's start with what seems like a simple question, but one that really trips up so many people. Who exactly is your ideal customer?
Right.
It sounds fundamental, but a lack of clarity here can seriously undermine everything else you do.
It truly is the foundation. You know, the marketing legend Seth Godin famously said, everyone is not your customer.
Right.
And that's never been truer than in the digital age. Trying to appeal to absolutely everyone online is pretty much a surefire way to resonate with, well, no one in particular.
Okay, so instead of this kind of hazy idea of a target market, we need to drill down and create a really specific picture. That's what's often called an ideal customer profile, or ICP, right?
Exactly, an ICP.
So what are the key parts of a truly useful ICP? What makes it work?
Well, a powerful ICP goes way beyond just those surface level demographics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, age, location, income.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things provide a basic framework, sure. But the real power, it lies in understanding their psychographics.
Psychographics. Okay, so that's like their attitudes, interests.
Exactly. Their attitudes, interests, values, motivations, their lifestyle, what actually makes them tick.
So it's about tapping into what they really care about on a deeper level.
Precisely. Think about it.
Okay.
Knowing your ideal customer is, say, a 40-year-old man in London earning X amount, that gives you some information.
Sure.
But knowing he's also a passionate advocate for sustainable living, actively researches ethical brands before buying anything, and spends his weekends hiking, now that paints a much more vivid and, frankly, actionable picture.
It really does. Yeah, it transforms this abstract customer into someone you can almost imagine having a conversation with.
Exactly.
Can you give us maybe a concrete example of how this might play out for a specific business?
Absolutely. Let's think about a company selling high-quality organic coffee beans, maybe sourced from small, fair trade farms.
Okay.
Their ICP isn't just anyone who drinks coffee. It's likely someone, say, in their late 20s to mid-50s, probably living in an urban or maybe suburban area.
Mm.
Someone who values ethical consumption,
Hmm.
okay? They're interested in food quality. Perhaps they subscribe to specialty food magazines. And crucially, they're willing to pay a bit of a premium for products that really align with their values.
That level of detail really clarifies things, but where do you even begin to gather this kind of nuanced information? It feels a bit like being a detective.
It is a bit of detective work, yeah. But fortunately, we have a wealth of data kind of at our fingertips these days.
Okay.
Tools like Google Analytics, platforms' own audience insights like Meta's, they can reveal a lot about demographics and broad interests of your current website visitors and social followers.
Right, the quantitative stuff.
Exactly. Market research reports can give you those macro-level trends. But critically, don't overlook the value of just talking to people. Direct engagement.
Ah.
Customer interviews, surveys, they can yield just invaluable qualitative data. And you can even analyze things like the LinkedIn profiles of your best existing customers. That can reveal patterns in their professional backgrounds, skills, interests.
So it's a mix then. It's digital sleuthing combined with, well, good old-fashioned connection and conversation.
You got it.
And I'm intrigued by this idea you hear about sometimes customer avatars. How do they help solidify this understanding?
Yeah. Think of a customer avatar as a kind of semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer, based on all that research you've done.
Okay.
You actually give them a name, maybe a job, hobbies, list out their challenges or goals. So for our ethical coffee bean company, we might create, let's say, conscious consumer Clara.
Conscious consumer Clara, I like it.
Yeah. Maybe she's 38, she's a marketing professional, maybe she commutes by bike, volunteers at a local community garden, and she actively seeks out brands with, transparent supply chains.
Okay, I can really see the power in that. It suddenly makes your target audience feel much more tangible, real.
It does.
So when you're sitting down to write, I don't know, a product description or plan a social media campaign, you're actually thinking, would conscious consumer Clara find this relevant? Would it engage her?
Precisely. It just injects this layer of empathy and real focus into all your marketing efforts.
Makes sense.
Now, having that crystal clear picture of who your ideal customer is, that's really only the first piece of the puzzle.
Right.
You also need to understand where they spend their time online.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Because knowing conscious consumer Clara cares about ethical sourcing is great, but which online platforms does she actually use? Is she scrolling Instagram, pinning on Pinterest, reading specific blogs?
Exactly.
This is where mapping their online journey becomes so essential, isn't it?
Precisely. You need to basically trace their digital footprint. Start by examining your website analytics.
Okay.
Which channels are driving the most valuable traffic?
Right.
Are they coming from specific social platforms like Instagram? Or maybe specific Google searches? Or perhaps even niche online forums related to sustainability or coffee?
So you're looking for patterns.
Yeah, look at which channels correlate with longer visit durations, higher engagement, and ultimately, better conversion rates.
So it's really about following the digital breadcrumbs left by those people who are most likely to become your loyal customers.
You got it.
You also mentioned social listening earlier. What's the key to doing that effectively?
Well, social listening is about actively monitoring online conversations. Conversations related to your industry, your brand, and the topics your ideal customers are actually talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There are tools for this like Brand24 or Mention, but even just targeted searches on platforms like Twitter or Reddit can help you track relevant hashtags, maybe hashtag sustainable living or hashtag fair trade coffee in our example. And you can monitor discussions within relevant online communities or specific forums. This lets you understand the questions they're asking, the influencers they trust, and critically, the platforms where these conversations are actually happening.
That sounds incredibly valuable. It's like getting an unfiltered peek into their world, their needs, their interests.
It really is.
And it's not just about where they are, but also how they use those different platforms. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone might use LinkedIn primarily for, professional networking and industry news.
Sure.
But then they might turn to YouTube for in-depth reviews of products related to their hobbies, totally different context.
Right.
So you need to understand the intent behind their platform usage. Why are they on Instagram right now? What are they hoping to find on Reddit? Segmenting your understanding based on their behavior and motivations on each channel, that's really key.
Can you share an example maybe of a company that really nailed this online journey mapping?
Sure. Let's think about a boutique fitness studio, one specializing in pre- and postnatal workouts.
Got it.
Initially, they might have focused their marketing kind of broadly on local health and wellness groups on Facebook. Pretty
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah.
But maybe by analyzing their website traffic and doing some social listening, they discovered that their ideal clients, expecting and new mothers, were actually super active in smaller, more niche Facebook groups. Groups focused on specific stages of pregnancy or early motherhood.
Much more specific.
Exactly. So by shifting their focus to these more targeted communities and really tailoring their content to the specific questions and concerns being raised right there, they saw a significant increase in qualified leads and a much stronger sense of community around their brand. They figured out where their specific ideal customer was actually seeking information and support.
That makes perfect sense. It's finding those highly relevant online watering holes, essentially.
Precisely.
Okay, so we know who they are. We know where they hang out online. Now we need to talk to them in a way that actually resonates. This is where crafting the message comes in.
Exactly. You can find your ideal customers, but if your message doesn't speak directly to their needs, their desires, it's almost like you haven't found them at all.
Right.
The key is to move beyond that generic marketing language and communicate in a way that really addresses their specific challenges and, their aspirations.
And I imagine storytelling plays a pretty significant role here, especially highlighting the problems you solve for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
People connect with stories much, much more effectively than they do with just lists of features.
Yeah.
So instead of simply stating what your product or service is, explain how it solves a particular problem your ideal customer is facing. For our ethical coffee company, instead of just saying, "We sell great coffee," They might tell the story of the specific farmers they work with
Okay.
and how their fair trade practices directly improve livelihoods. That directly appeals to Clara's value of ethical consumption.
Mm.
And using customer testimonials, ones that highlight the specific benefits they've experienced, they can also be incredibly powerful.
That adds that layer of authenticity, that emotional connection. And the tone of your message, that also has to be carefully considered depending on the platform, right? It can't be the same everywhere.
Precisely. While your overall brand voice should ideally remain consistent, the tone needs to adapt to the specific platform and, crucially, the expectations of its users.
Right.
So a more formal, maybe data-driven tone might be appropriate for LinkedIn,
Makes sense.
whereas a more casual, perhaps humorous approach might resonate better on TikTok. Instagram often favors really compelling visuals and authentic personal stories. It's about understanding the sort of cultural nuances of each platform and speaking in a way that feels natural and engaging to your ideal customer in that environment.
There's about being adaptable, but still staying true to your core brand identity.
You got it.
Now, what about personalization and dynamic content? How can we leverage those to make messages even more effective?
Personalization takes your messaging a step further. It involves tailoring content to individual users based on their behavior or maybe preferences they've stated. Tools like HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, they allow you to implement dynamic content in emails, on your website, even in your ads. So for example, if someone has previously viewed a specific type of coffee blend on your website, you could potentially show them a targeted ad or send them an email featuring that blend or maybe related products.
Yeah.
Or if they're a longtime subscriber, you might send them exclusive early access to new offerings.
That feeling of, wow, this was like made just for me, that's incredibly powerful for building a connection, isn't it?
It is. And the data really reflects its effectiveness. We know personalized campaigns consistently outperform generic ones, both in engagement and conversion rates. It's really about making your audience feel seen and understood.
That makes perfect sense. So moving from just broad messaging to this more tailored approach is key. And that really brings us nicely to audience segmentation. Why is this such a critical piece of laser-targeted marketing?
Segmentation is, well, it's basically the bedrock of effective targeting. It lets you move away from that ineffective one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
And instead, you divide your audience into smaller, more homogeneous groups based on shared characteristics or behaviors. And that enables you to deliver highly relevant and impactful messages.
So instead of treating absolutely everyone the same, we're creating these distinct subgroups to communicate with more effectively.
Exactly. Take behavioral segmentation, for instance. That looks at how people actually interact with your online presence.
Okay, like what they click on.
Yeah, they downloaded a lead magnet, have they visited specific product pages multiple times, maybe they added items to their cart but didn't complete the purchase, the classic cart abandoner.
Right.
You can then create segments like engaged content consumers or potential buyers or cart abandoners and tailor your follow-up messages accordingly.
That's smart, because someone who downloaded an ebook is probably way more interested than just a casual website visitor.
Definitely.
What are some other key ways we can segment our audience?
Well, you can also segment it based on demographics, of course, but it's often more powerful when you layer that with psychographics to get richer segments. Life cycle segmentation is also really valuable.
Yeah.
You might have different messaging for brand new subscribers versus your loyal long-term customers, your VIPs.
Yeah, treat them differently.
Exactly. And then there's interest-based segmentation using some of those tools we mentioned. That allows you to target people based on the topics they're actively engaging with online. For our coffee company, this might be people following specific specialty coffee influencers or engaging in online discussions about home brewing techniques.
So it's really about identifying those key differentiators within your broader audience and then speaking directly to their specific needs and interests.
That's it.
Can you give us another quick real-world example of successful segmentation in action?
Sure. Think about an online retailer selling art supplies.
Okay.
Instead of just blasting the same newsletter to everyone, they segmented their audience based on past purchase history and maybe interest people stated on sign-up. So customers who had previously bought watercolor supplies started getting emails about new watercolor paints and brush sets, while those who had bought acrylics were shown promotions on acrylic mediums and canvases.
Makes sense.
They even segmented based on skill level, sending beginner tutorials to newer customers and maybe more advanced technique guides to experienced artists. This targeted approach led to a really significant increase in their email engagement and, importantly, sales within each specific segment.
That's a fantastic illustration of just how powerful relevant communication can be. Okay, so we've talked about understanding, finding, segmenting our ideal customers. How do we then proactively reach them and really amplify our message online? This is where leveraging paid platforms comes in, right?
Precisely. While organic reach is absolutely vital for long-term, sustainable growth, paid advertising offers a much more immediate and crucially precisely targeted way to connect with your ideal customers. And it's great for testing the effectiveness of your messaging quickly.
Okay, let's dive into some of the key paid platforms. Facebook and Instagram ads, they offer incredibly detailed targeting options. What are maybe some underutilized ways businesses can leverage these?
Well, beyond the basic demographic and interest targeting, definitely explore layering behaviors and utilizing lookalike audiences.
Okay.
For instance, you can target people who exhibit specific online behaviors, like maybe frequent engagement with content related to your niche, or you can create lookalike audiences based on your existing best-performing customers to reach new people who share similar characteristics.
Find more people like your best customers.
Exactly. For our coffee company, they might target users who've purchased from competitor brands with similar ethical sourcing practices. Or create a lookalike audience based on their most loyal, maybe highest spending customers.
That makes a lot of sense. Find people who are already showing the behaviors of your ideal customer. What about LinkedIn advertising, especially for B2B businesses?
LinkedIn's real strength lies in its professional targeting capabilities. It's unparalleled there. You can segment by job title, industry, company size, specific skills people list, even professional interests or groups they're in.
Very granular.
Very. This makes it ideal for reaching specific decision makers or promoting content like white papers or webinars relevant to their professional development. Our ethical coffee company, if they also had an office coffee service, could target sustainability managers or office administrators in companies that emphasize employee well-being, for example.
And Google Ads, how can businesses go beyond just, broad keyword targeting there?
Definitely think beyond just those broad match keywords. Delve into
Oh,
long tail keywords, those longer, more specific phrases that indicate a much higher level of search intent.
okay.
Also, absolutely leverage remarketing to re-engage website visitors who showed interest but didn't convert. Show them relevant ads as they browse other sites.
Right. Follow them around a bit.
Yeah, gently. And explore Google's customer match feature, where you can actually upload your own customer list, maybe your email list, and target those specific people with tailored ads across Google's network.
Wow. Okay.
For our coffee company, someone who searched for, say, best organic fair trade single origin Ethiopian coffee, that's a highly qualified lead you want to reach.
So it's really about layering these targeting options and understanding the intent behind the searches and behaviors on each specific platform.
Exactly.
And you mentioned the importance of budget-conscious testing. That seems key.
Absolutely crucial. Don't just throw a huge budget at something untested. Start with smaller, focused campaigns. Test different audience segments, test different ad creatives images, videos, test your landing pages. A/B testing headlines, calls to action, even button colors can yield really valuable insights without breaking the bank. Once you identify what's actually resonating and working, then you can scale up those successful campaigns.
Okay, so paid advertising offers that direct, targeted route. But what about attracting ideal customers more organically, drawing them in with valuable content? This is where SEO and a really strong content strategy come into play.
Exactly. While paid ads provide that targeted push, SEO and content marketing act as a really powerful pull. They attract ideal customers who are actively out there seeking information and solutions related to your area of expertise.
Keyword research is obviously the cornerstone of SEO.
Yeah.
How can we move beyond just the obvious keywords to uncover the real gems, the phrases our ideal customers are actually typing into Google?
You really need to think about the pain points, the questions, the problems your ideal customers have. Go beyond those surface-level, high-volume terms and explore long-tail keywords.
Longer phrases.
Yeah, those longer, more specific phrases that indicate a higher level of intent. For our coffee company, instead of just targeting coffee, they might target something like best way to brew pour-over coffee at home, or maybe benefits of single-origin coffee for sensitive stomachs.
Much more specific needs.
Exactly. Tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, even Google's own keyword planner are essential for uncovering these often less competitive but highly relevant terms.
So it's about really understanding the specific language they use when they're looking for help or information.
Precisely.
And once you've identified those keywords, how do you structure your content effectively to attract them?
The key is often to develop what we sometimes call content pillars. These are usually comprehensive, authoritative guides or articles that address the core topics your ideal customers are really interested in.
Okay, like a big foundational piece.
Exactly. For our coffee company, a pillar piece might be the ultimate guide to brewing specialty coffee at home, or maybe understanding the different regions and flavor profiles of single origin coffee.
Got it.
And then, around these big pillar pieces, you create supporting content, blog posts, videos, maybe infographics that delve into more specific aspects of that main topic. And you make sure they all interlink nicely to establish your topical authority in the eyes of search engines and users.
It's like building a really valuable resource hub that positions you as the go-to expert in that area.
That's the goal.
And of course, it's not just about attracting them to your site, right? It's also about guiding them towards becoming leads or customers. That's where conversion optimization within your content comes in.
Precisely. You need to integrate clear and compelling calls to action within your valuable content. Offer things like content upgrades, maybe a downloadable brewing guide PDF, or a checklist for choosing ethical coffee brands in exchange for their email address.
Given something extra.
Yeah. Make sure your lead capture forms are strategically placed, easy to find, simple to complete. The goal is always to nurture those engaged readers and gently move them further down your funnel.
Can you give us an example of a business that used SEO and content really well to attract their ideal audience?
Sure. Think about a website selling, say, high-end hiking gear. They didn't just create product pages listing specs. They built out an extensive blog with really in-depth articles like The Ultimate Guide to Backpacking the Appalachian Trail, or How to Choose the Right Hiking Boots for Different Types of Terrain, maybe Leave No Trace Principles for Responsible Hiking.
Really useful stuff for their audience.
Exactly. By targeting keywords related to their ideal customers' passion hiking, backpacking the outdoors, and providing genuinely valuable in-depth information, they consistently attracted highly qualified traffic. People who were much more likely to eventually purchase their gear because they trusted the source.
That's a really powerful way to build trust and attract exactly the right kind of attention. Now, wow, we've covered a huge amount of ground here. It feels crucial to remember, though, that this isn't a sort of set it and forget it kind of thing, is it? It requires ongoing analysis and adjustment.
Oh, absolutely. That's maybe one of the most important takeaways. The online marketing landscape is incredibly dynamic. What works brilliantly today might be less effective tomorrow. Continuous monitoring and adaptation are absolutely essential for any kind of sustained success.
So what are the really key metrics we need to be tracking? Going beyond just, website visits or social media likes, what really matters?
You need to focus on metrics that actually indicate the quality of your leads and the overall effectiveness of your campaigns in driving business results.
Right.
So track your lead quality. Are the leads you're generating actually converting into paying customers down the line?
Right.
Monitor your conversion rates at different stages of your sales funnel. Keep a close eye on your cost per acquisition. How much are you actually spending to acquire each new customer? And critically, understand your customer lifetime value, or CLV.
The long-term value.
Exactly. Also, pay close attention to engagement metrics that signal genuine interest, things like time spent on page, content shares, comments, and especially repeat purchases.
Okay, so the numbers provide really valuable insights. But is there also a role for more qualitative feedback, like talking to people?
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of directly asking your customers about their experience. Seriously, just ask them.
Okay.
Conduct surveys, solicit feedback through email follow-ups, pay close attention to comments and online reviews. Ask them things like, how did you find us? What was the main reason you chose us? Were there any hesitations you had? This qualitative data can uncover really valuable insights that the numbers alone might completely miss.
And then the final step is taking all of this information, the numbers, the feedback, and continuously refining your strategies based on what you learn.
Exactly. Use the data you gather to refine your audience segments, maybe tweak your messaging, adjust your ad spend allocation between platforms, perhaps even consider making small changes to your product or service based directly on customer feedback. For example, if you discover that customers acquired through a specific long-tail keyword search consistently have a significantly higher lifetime value than others, well, you might logically decide to invest more heavily in creating content that targets that specific keyword and related terms. It's this continuous cycle. Learn, adjust, improve, repeat.
This has been an incredibly comprehensive dive. Honestly, super helpful. To maybe try and summarize it all, what would be your key takeaways for our listeners who are really looking to laser target their online growth?
Okay, let's boil it down. Here's maybe a 7-step blueprint for that laser-targeted online growth.
Right.
1. Deeply understand your ideal customer. Go way beyond demographics. Get into their psychographics, motivations, pain points. Really know them.
Got it.
2. Map their online journey. Figure out where they actually hang out online, the platforms, communities, content sources they frequent.
Okay.
3. Craft targeted messages. Speak directly to their needs and desires. Use compelling storytelling. Tailor your language and tone for each specific platform.
Makes sense.
4. Segment and personalize your communication. Divide your audience into relevant groups and deliver personalized experiences whenever possible. 5. Strategically leverage both paid and organic channels. You need a mix. Integrate SEO, content marketing, and paid advertising for maximum reach and impact.
Yep.
6. Test, analyze, and iterate relentlessly. Continuously monitor your results. Don't be afraid to experiment. Make data-driven adjustments to your strategies.
Crucial.
And finally, 7. Focus on building authentic relationships. Engage with your audience genuinely. Respond to their feedback. Listen to them. And really try to foster a sense of community. And remember, this isn't about finding some magic bullet for instant results. It's really about building a sustainable, long-term strategy based on that deep foundational understanding of your ideal customer.
That's a fantastic and really actionable framework. The core message, it really seems to be, is that knowing your audience inside and out, truly understanding them, that's the non-negotiable foundation for any successful online growth strategy.
Precisely. By investing the time and, yes, the effort to truly understand who you're trying to reach, where they spend their time online, and what actually resonates with them, you'll not only attract more of the right customers, but you'll also build a much stronger, more loyal community around your brand in the long run.
So the advice is, take the time, really get to know your audience. It's an investment that will absolutely pay dividends down the road.
It really will. And maybe on that note, here's something for you listening to consider. Looking back at those 7 steps we just outlined, which one feels like the biggest opportunity for you to focus on right now in your own online strategy?
Good question.
And following on from that, what's one small, concrete action or experiment you could run, maybe even this week, to test a hypothesis related to that specific step? That's your challenge as you continue your own deep dive into connecting more effectively with your ideal customers.